In this presentation, we will go through the payroll setup process. In other words, we've already had the payroll purchased within QuickBooks Online, and now we're going to go through the process of setting up our payroll items, going through the interview type of process, the question and answer type process to set up that payroll. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in our S-Corp paid payroll file. This is just the company name. Don't need to be an S-Corporation in order to set up the payroll. Note, we're going to go down here to the Workers tab again, our Payroll tab, and we've already purchased the payroll now. So payroll's purchased, but we haven't set anything up. We haven't gone through the interview process to set up the payroll. So we're going to go down here once purchased then, or if we purchase it directly from the website when we set up payroll and purchase QuickBooks together, we'll then have to go through the setup or interview type process. That will be here. It says get set up. So we're going to go ahead and select that item to get set up. First, we're going to have the company information up top. So we got the business name. We're going to enter the business address. This will be a mock address that we will be entering here. This is a house in Beverly Hills, so it's for sale right now if you'd like to say that. But this is going to be the address we will use for our mock payroll. Next question, have you paid any W-2 employees during 2019? Note that if you're going to set up the payroll process, you really want to set it up as of the beginning of the year or the first point at which you will be paying payroll within that year. So in other words, if it's more difficult, in other words, to start a payroll process outside of QuickBooks, have been run payroll, have already had paid payroll outside of QuickBooks, and then enter it into QuickBooks, because then we're going to have some items for payroll that we have to enter into the system so that the taxes will be calculated correctly. In other words, if we had already run payroll for January and February and we're starting the QuickBooks file in March, then we have the added task, the added difficulty of adding January and February. Why do I need to add January and February? Because we still need to file the quarterly reports, the 941s at the end of the time period, the yearly reports. The W-2 needs to reflect all information for all payroll, and payroll taxes differ depending on some items, depending on the types of payroll taxes, as we'll see, as we'll discuss. So you really want to, if at all possible, if you're starting payroll in February or March and you haven't issued any payroll before that, then that's not a problem. That's okay, because then that's where it is what it is. You'll start from there. If, however, you had payroll in prior months and you're entering it into QuickBooks, then that becomes a bit more difficult. So you want it to be, you're going to be entering payroll. If you've had payroll in the past and you're starting QuickBooks, the best time to do it is January to start, right? You're going to switch payroll at the end. Whatever your prior payroll was, do that, and then start this in January. If you're new and you're just going to start payroll, then whenever you start your business, it could be any time of the year, but you really want to start payroll and paying your first payroll within the QuickBooks so it can accumulate the yearly data. It's got to do it in yearly chunks so that we can process the quarterlies and the yearly reports all from the same system. Again, if not, you'll have to go through it's a little bit more problem, and it's a bit of a problem to get the prior data in there and make sure that that's input so that the future payroll is then calculated correctly and all the year-end data is correctly. So we're going to say, no, I have not paid employees prior in 2019. This is going to be the first payroll that we will run. We will then continue. Next question, do you have W-4 forms filled out by your employees? These are going to be the forms that would be filled out as we start a new employee, and therefore we should have those forms. That's where we're going to get the information that we're going to enter in for these employees into the system. So we're going to have W-4s from our employees, which is basically an information form for the employees to enter their data into our system. So we're going to say continue. Now we're going to add an employee. So we'll add the employee, setting up an employee, and we're going to give a mock employee for our problem here. It's going to be Anthony. We're going to say Anthony, and this would come from the W-4 form. So Anthony would fill out the W-4. More, I'm not sure that's what that's the spelling of the last name they gave us, so we'll keep that. And I don't think the email address is required. It's not typically needed. It won't be needed on the W-2, but any added information for the employee for our contact purposes would be good. In other words, to set up payroll, we need a minimum amount of data so that we can process payroll, give the W-2s, and also we'll have the database program within QuickBooks that we can use then just for our informational purposes to contact and keep in contact, keep notes with our employees. Date of hire, we're going to say is 01/01/19 or January 1st. We're going to say it's as of. We're going to start the payroll within here as of the first day of the year. How often do you pay, Anthony? We're going to enter the schedule here. Note the standard pay periods are typically going to be weekly or monthly, twice a month. We're going to have the pay periods for us be a monthly pay period. So we want every month will be the pay periods. We're going to do a month end. That'll differ from company to company. Most companies will pay every 2 weeks, bi-weekly, or semi-monthly. So we're going to go here for monthly for our purposes. And then we're going to say, when is the next payday? We're going to say January 31st at the end of the month. When's the last day of the work pay period for the payday? So in other words, we're going to have the pay period end at the end of the month every month. It's possible for us to then not have the payroll date until after that, sometime in February. Note that as we do that, when you have something that's going to be paid in the following pay period, the payroll is going to be more on a cash basis. So that will affect the quarterlies. So what we're going to do here is keep it in the same month. So we're going to say it's as of the end of the month, as of January 31st, and we're going to also pay it on that same day. So note that oftentimes you may have that lag because you might want the lag saying this is the end of the pay period, and then give yourself a few days to process the payroll and may pay it a few days afterwards. We're going to keep them here as of the same day, and that will allow the grouping of the information to be in the same month as we group the 941s and the 940s and all that quarterly type of information. We'll explain that in more depth as we start to process the payroll. We're also going to use this schedule for employees after Anthony, meaning other employees are going to typically also be paid at the end of the month, and they're going to be paid in the same format. We could possibly have different people being paid in under different formats. We might pay some people semi-weekly or weekly or some other format. We're going to typically, hopefully, keep to the similar schedule though, because that will make payroll much easier. So then we're going to say done. How much do you pay, Anthony? We're going to say it's going to keep it at hourly, and we're going to say 25, so 25 hourly. Note if we select the drop down, the typical options are going to be hourly or salary. In other words, salary would be a yearly salary that we would break down to our time period, in our case monthly. We'll add another employee and have them be salary at a later time. We're going to keep just the hourly at this time. Does Anthony have any deductions? Example, retirement or healthcare. We'll talk about that and we'll add those as we go. We're not going to have any at this time. What are Anthony's withholdings? So we're going to enter that information. So we'll go to the Enter W-4 form. Note that QuickBooks Online gives us a nice W-4 type of mock input screen. So here's the W-4 input screen. If we had information from a W-4, here is a W-4 that we would have our employee basically fill out this information and then use it to do this data input. So we have first name and last name, marital status here, and of course we need that for federal income tax purposes. That's why we get it, to calculate the federal income tax withholdings for the employees. And then of course the number of allowances and the address. And so this will be the basic essential information we're going to need over here. So we have the name, social security number, we're going to say is a mock social security, of course, which is 68184, and we're going to say 8347. Then we'll add the address. Here is our mock address. Again, it's another home in Beverly Hills, so I think that's for sale still too, or at least it was. So you can take a look at that. And then we're going to go over here and say that the marital status will be married. And then we're going to scroll down and say that total number of allowances, this being from the W-4, is going to be 4. We're going to say from our W-4, no additional amount. For California, we're going to enter the same information. We're going to say married, 1 income. And we're going to say that the allowances will be 4 here. Note that our goal is to really focus on the Fed, not California. But we want to add a state just so we can at least concentrate on the SUTA and FUTA. So our goal here isn't to concentrate on California. If you're outside of California, that's okay. The federal will apply to, of course, the entire United States. And then the California or any other state will have some things that are kind of necessary for us to have some state, such as the calculation of federal unemployment tax, even though it's a federal tax, and because the state unemployment tax is kind of tied to it. So that's the main thing we'll have. So even if you don't have withholdings or state taxes or federal on the payroll taxes in whatever state you're in, or if they're different, that's okay because most states will have some kind of SUTA and it'll be standardized because it's tied to the federal income tax. So that's what we really want to show, not just to emphasize California. It'll apply to in any place. We're concentrating on the federal side of things, and we want some state to be represented. Then we'll scroll down and we'll say done. Then we have, how do you want to pay, Anthony? And of course, direct deposit would be nice if we had that information. We're not going to do direct deposit though. We're going to go for our problem here, the paper check. So, and note that even if you do direct deposit, of course, you'll still need to provide like a pay stub and whatnot. So, because you need to tell the employee what they earned, and what they got paid isn't what they earned, it's the net pay. So you got to give them the pay stub and say, here's what you actually earned, here's what we took from you because we're required to do so, so that we can then pay the taxes with it. Then we'll say done. Now our basic payroll information is set up. Note here that we have workers' compensation insurance for California. We're not going to get into the workers' compensation here as well. That's going to be an area that will be specific to location. We now have Anthony Moore set up and good to go within our worker. So if we were to go back up, say, to the dashboard, and here's our dashboard, and then we go down to workers, you'll now see that we have the 3 tabs set up, payroll being set up. We've got the employees tab. We scroll down, there is our employee, and then the contractors tab. And this would deal with contractors, 1099 type of information, people that aren't going to get a W-2 typically. And then we've got the workers' comp tab, which would be specific to location, and QuickBooks can help and be specialized within location to location. So the Fed, of course, for the whole country is something that QuickBooks can really help with because it's standardized. And then state to state and location to location, QuickBooks is getting better and better at knowing the regulations and whatnot specific to those locations and helping to manage that information as well. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.